All right, let's dive into a topic that, believe me, is no longer just for the big banks. We're talking about anti-money laundering, or AML, and it's now a critical, need-to-know responsibility for a huge range of businesses. This is all about protecting the stability of our financial systems, sure, but it's also about protecting your company's reputation and, frankly, your license to operate. So let's break down exactly what you need to know.
Here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll get the basics down, what we're actually talking about. Then, we'll look at who's in charge, the regulators. After that, we'll dig into the rulebook itself, which I'll break down into 3 key pillars. From there, we'll see what this all looks like inside a real company. And finally, we'll cover how the whole system gets checked and what's coming down the pike.
Okay, first things first, before we get into the nitty-gritty of compliance, we have to be crystal clear on what it is we're actually fighting against. Let's start with the absolute foundation.
So what is money laundering, really? At its heart, it's pretty simple. It's all about making dirty money look clean. As you can see, it's the whole process of taking cash or assets from any kind of illegal activity and sneaking it into the legitimate economy. The entire goal is to hide where it really came from.
Now here's a really crucial distinction to make. Money laundering is not the same as terrorism financing. With money laundering, it's all about the origin of the money, where it came from. It's always from a crime. But with terrorism financing, it's all about the purpose, where the money is going. In that case, the money could have been earned perfectly legally, but it's being funneled towards illegal activities. So just remember, money laundering, illegal origin. Terrorism financing, illegal purpose.
So how do they do it? Well, there's a classic 3-step playbook. It starts with placement, which is just getting that illicit cash into the financial system in the first place. Then comes layering. This is where criminals get creative, creating a maze of complicated transactions to throw everyone off the trail. And finally, there's integration. The now clean money is reintroduced into the economy to buy things like real estate or luxury cars, and it all looks completely legit.
So who's the police in all this? Who actually makes the rules and makes sure everybody's following them? Let's meet the guardians of the system from the global level right down to what's happening nationally.
Okay, on the world stage, the big name you need to know is the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF. They're the ones setting the global standards. Now, if we zoom into the European Union, there's a massive new player on the scene, the Anti-Money Laundering Authority, AMLA, which will be based right in Frankfurt. And down at the national level in Germany, you've got BaFin, which keeps an eye on banks and insurers, and the Financial Intelligence Unit, the FIU, which is the central hub where all suspicious activity reports end up.
All right, let's talk about the rulebook itself. And here's something you absolutely have to understand. This is not a set it and forget it kind of deal. The legal requirements have gotten incredibly complex, and they are constantly changing.
I mean, just look at this timeline. The EU's 4th anti-money laundering directive really pushed the idea of a risk-based approach. The 5th directive came along and pulled crypto assets into the mix. Then in Germany, the trafficking law made it mandatory for companies to actively report who their real owners are. And the 6th directive? That's coming up. And it's all about making the rules even stricter and more uniform across the entire EU. The takeaway is simple. The pressure is always on and the rules are always evolving.
So with all this going on, how does a company even begin to get a handle on it? Well, it really all boils down to this core framework of 3 pillars. First, you've got risk management. That means having an AML officer and a real honest analysis of your company's risks. Second, customer due diligence, which everyone calls KYC, or Know Your Customer. And third, a rock-solid process for reporting anything that looks fishy to the FIU. This right here, this is the foundation of any good AML program.
Let's get really practical now. We've talked about the concepts and we've seen the rules. So what does this actually look like day to day, inside your business?
You know, if those 3 pillars are the building, who's the person making sure it doesn't fall down? Who's holding it all together?
That would be the Money Laundering Reporting Officer. And listen, this is not just some title they hand out. It's a critical role with serious authority. They report straight to the top. They literally write the company's internal rulebook. They're the one making the tough calls on reporting to the FIU, and they're responsible for training everybody. This role is considered so important that the officer actually has special legal protection against being fired. That tells you everything you need to know about how seriously this is taken.
Okay, we mentioned KYC as that second pillar. It's a term you hear thrown around constantly. But what does Know Your Customer really involve when the rubber hits the road?
KYC is truly the beating heart of your AML efforts. It means you absolutely must identify your customer and then verify they are who they say they are. But it goes deeper. You have to figure out who the ultimate beneficial owners are, the actual people pulling the strings behind a company. You also have to check if they're a politically exposed person or PEP, because that's a higher risk. And this is not a one-and-done check. It means ongoing monitoring of the relationship. If you can't do these things, you can't do business with them. It's that simple.
Oh, and a really quick but super important point, don't get sanctions screening mixed up with AML. They're related but different. Sanctions lists are basically no-go lists. They prohibit you from dealing with certain people or organizations at all, no matter where their money came from. It's a separate mandatory check, and it's just as important.
So you've built your system on those 3 pillars, you have your AML officer in place, your KYC processes are humming along, but how do you know if it's actually working? And that brings us to our final section, the checkup. Well, your system gets put to the test in 2 key ways, from the inside and from the outside. Internal audits are your own teams regularly kicking the tires on all your key processes. Then you have external audits, which provide that independent verification from your annual auditors or even a special visit from a regulator like BaFin. You absolutely need both to find any weak spots before they become big problems.
And you know, this quote just nails it. A strong AML program isn't just about ticking boxes for compliance. When you get it right, it secures the most valuable asset any business has, trust. Trust from your customers, trust from your partners, and yes, trust from the regulators.
So, as we wrap this up, the final question really lands right back on your plate. The rules are getting tougher, the oversight is getting stronger, and the stakes are getting higher every single day. So you have to ask yourself, is your company ready?